So welcome, Charlie, to Let's Run Facebook Ads. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm slightly recovering. I went and saw Judas Priest last night, and the right side of my face is still just a little melted. So I'm doing the best I can.
Heavy metal, is it?
Oh yeah, heavy metal. 50 years of heavy metal. Rob Halford. It was a beautiful thing. It was at one point he came out on a Harley Davidson in leather daddy gear with a riding crop and saying about like it was amazing. I love it. I'm a big music fan.
So it's a headache.
If you can't tell.
Music. Headache today, yeah. Late night.
A little bit, but I'm here. You know, at the end of the day, I get to talk to you about the thing that I love, honestly, more than anything other than rock and roll. So I could do this any day of the week. I love it.
Brilliant. Okay, so, well, I've come across you through my team because my team have been watching your videos, and what I love about your stuff is how you've definitely picking up the reels, and the fact that Instagram are pushing people out there. Your reels they're funny, they're entertaining, they're informative. It's not just boring things. See, when I start doing these reels, I'm just a bit boring. I haven't got we have to do. That's why I've set up a podcast. I can sit here, I can talk, and our listeners love it, and we're growing that way. You're growing. We all find our little way of getting ourselves out there, which is brilliant. And I love the way you do it, which is great. But if we start with talking about you, so guys who are listening, we're going to be going right into the things that Charlie finds working on Facebook. Charlie has been working with Facebook on Facebook for 10 years. He even remembers the day when Facebook came to his offices. So why don't we start with where it all started? Talk about that for 5 minutes or so, and then we can get really in depth and see what's working.
As my buddy Rabba, my old buddy, who's now CMO of Triple Whale, as he would say, the TLDR of how we got here. The too long didn't read. I was a touring musician and radio personality. I've been on the road for 10 years playing rock and roll, and I had a career in satellite radio. I got really good at promoting myself, promoting bands, promoting events.
Yeah.
Then there was a sex tape scandal with Hulk Hogan and somebody else. And long story short, they pulled the funding from a radio station because the woman of that sex tape was the wife of the owner of the radio station. And I fled to Florida. Yeah, Hulk Hogan
had an affair with the wife of the radio station.
A sex tape with the owner of the radio station's wife. He and Howard Stern were funding the radio station. Gawker came out, sued him, pulled the funding, and I was no longer on Sirius XM every day. And I got out of Central Florida, moved to LA, and got a job, got an apartment on a Monday, got a job interview on a Friday, started that next Monday doing organic growth, basically hacking. At an ad agency, $10 an hour.
Obviously, I'm in the UK. We have loads of American listeners, but Sirius FM, you see them on the YouTube. That's a big thing.
Oh yeah, no, we have 1.4 million listeners on a daily basis.
Wow. And
I was on that show. I was the third person, so I had my own radio show on FM.
Yeah.
I started at like college radio and answering phones and AM radio stations. And very quickly I got my own show and I built those up over the years. And eventually I got attached to somebody else. So there was the host, there was the producer. So if you know, like, I don't know, I can make a reference. Some people might get it, might not, but like Howard Stern.
Oh, him, yeah.
So there's Howard Stern. And then there's like Robin, right? The producer, news lady that works with him.
Right.
And then there's like, back in the day, it was Jackie Jokeman Martling. Then it was like Artie Lang. But there was this like third person that came in occasionally to interject, right? I was that third person in Sirius XM. And then I had my own show on FM with, where I was, constantly putting together playlists and taking phone calls and kind of had the run of the mill there. Long story short, with all of that aside, I had to get out of Florida awfully quick, completely unrelated, I assure you. And I ended up in Los Angeles and got a job working at an ad agency for $10 an hour. And it was basically doing a growth hacking. for, at the time, Disney stars, basically taking boys and girls that had been on the Mickey Mouse Club and getting them a ton of YouTube views and followers.
Right. Okay.
And I got that job basically because I had organically growth hacked my band on MySpace, my radio shows from college. Like, there was a college radio show, you get 100 listeners. I had one that had 100,000.
So you just understood how to do it, and it was right. Time to on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So when I moved, it was like, well, I didn't realize this was a job. I didn't realize this was like a thing people did. And to be fair, at the time, it was new. Like, it was 2012. Like, it wasn't like a thing that people did, really. And then their biggest client got rid of them. And then it was last hired, first fired. So I ended up taking one of their people with me, started my own agency. And my biggest client, I was just hiring people. I was just taking on clients. My biggest client fired me one day. And he said, I just used this thing, Facebook. I dropped $100 into it. It got me more than what I pay you $2,000 a month for.
Yeah.
And I swallowed my pride, ate very poorly, as I like to call it, carbohydrate therapy that day. Yeah. And then dropped my credit card into Facebook the next day and started running ads. At the same time, also, there's this TV show in America called Mad Men.
Yeah.
And then after Mad Men, there was this show called The Pitch, which is a reality TV show where agencies would compete to be the AOR, the agency of record for big businesses. Well, anyway, the very last episode of that show, they canceled it after I was on the show. They were like, we can't do this ever again. This Charlie guy's on camera. Done. You were pulling the plug. 1-800-Flowers came. And basically, they had this innovative idea. You have to spend $100,000, but you can't do print, radio, or television. It has to be all on social, which at the time was crazy.
This is like new. This is new. And it's like, no one even knows what they're supposed to be doing. No, you post.
Yeah, you can't do email. You can't do Google. None of that stuff. It has to all be Facebook.
Right.
And we won. So at one time, my client fired me for because he was running ads. And then 1-800-Flowers basically loved my growth hacking and paid ad strategy for them, which was they have a $5 cookie. Yeah. And so for the $100,000, we basically said, we'll give 20,000 of those, roughly 20,000 of those away. I give you a cookie, you give one to somebody else. You get one and you get a voucher. Right. And then we just did this pay it forward just because gifting, where basically they got everybody's CRM list and we got a custom audience using Facebook ads for every single person that touched that cookie.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that's 20,000 email addresses. They did exceptionally well off of that investment.
And even still to this day, the email address and creating a list is still so important, which is what we're always talking to our clients about. It's just like, make that list, guys.
Yeah. You know, because you own that information. That's one of the very few things.
We're renting from Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere else. We're just renting that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like those other channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, you are in an arrangement.
Yeah.
They have a business model, right? Their business model is eyeballs for profit, right? They are trying to retain attention as much as possible.
Yeah.
So when you make an ad, a lot of advertisers think of it as I'm going to put money in and I'm going to try to get money out.
Yeah.
Facebook sees it as we're going to offer you some of our organic inventory. We're going to charge you for it. Now, if you give the users a positive experience, we're going to give you a discount. And if that user has a bad experience, we're going to charge you extra.
Love the way you've done that. That's a great analogy of it.
And that's all it is. Facebook ads is paying for organic reach. And that's all that it is. After that, like everything else is completely like,
we're going to disrupt someone at the right time that we think they want to see that piece of jewelry and buy it. Make it good and make that experience brilliant, even post-click on your website, how it performs.
Oh, please, yeah.
Make it all A star and we'll bring your costs down.
Yeah, absolutely. And because then you are seen as a good partner.
Yeah.
Right? In any relationship, if your partner says, this is what I need from you, like I'm married, I don't know about you, but like if my wife comes to me and says, I need X, Y, and Z, and my response is basically to give her the middle finger and try to take all of her money, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, yeah.
And people complain all the time that they disrespect end users and the Facebook business relationship, and it doesn't work out for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's kind of where I come from with a lot of this stuff. And so ultimately I got a job as the supervisor at Omnicom for the Southwest stuff. I walked in, I had 6 months of Facebook ad experience, which basically made me one of the most qualified people around. And at the time, Facebook was a pay-per-click platform. It's funny, my buddy Dennis Yu, we were talking once, and like he remembers when Facebook CPMs were 25 cents. Yeah. I came in when it was about $1.50.
Wow.
So like he's got a couple of years on me. But so I got to see the innovation of a lot of this stuff. And you know, what we were kind of leading up to, for instance, with Omnicom and Resolution Media, was my clients were like CBS, Nissan, worked with the Activision team, Levi's, you know, all of those folks, Apple, and I was managing, you know, $1 million or more a day, easy, in direct to consumer, and brand awareness, and, you know, all sorts of that fun stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, and that was 2013, 14, 15, like this is still Facebook. It was edited in Excel and didn't have a pixel. Yeah. Like as we know it today, there wasn't a conversion pixel. What you like, if you wanted to
like
pixel,
that's not around anymore as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
yeah. Like if you wanted to pixel your site to track what happened after the click, it would take a week of dev work to literally drop a code on every button, on every page, on everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I've been around since then, and we were doing $1 million a day in direct to consumer back, you know, when you couldn't even track a conversion.
Yeah.
So I've been around a little bit, you know, to say the least.
Which is really interesting. So you seeing, like, if we're talking about like first and third party cookies, obviously iOS has happened. 96% of people are dropping out, have opted out. You know, every platform's being hit. So people are like, Facebook. It's like, no, it's everyone. This is like everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking now, you know, there's going to be companies out there who are going to be trying to create first party cookies that can go on your website and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, all these other things out there that people are saying, oh, this is the new thing. It's like, well, Facebook or someone else would have bought those companies out. Yeah. If they'd figured it, they would have been acquired, because Facebook is all these platforms are desperate to sort this thing out. How do you see, from what you saw 10 years ago to where you see it going now? Are you seeing that because the pixels just having problems, the tracking, getting that information back to Facebook, are you seeing that we're having to go back to how it kind of was with custom, building custom audiences, building custom conversions and things like that?
Yeah, I actually lean the other way. And here's why, more than anything. iOS 14, the part of the journey that the pixel is blocked or has struggled with is the last 5, is the last yard, right? It's the last meter in a 100-meter dash.
Yeah.
I'll put it like this. 1, the average user in a first world country, UK, United States, whatever, has had a Facebook account, adults, right, for at least 10 years now, on average, at least 10 years. Facebook is seeing the millions of websites, pages, pixel events you've fired, engagements, messages on Messenger, DMs that you've sent, content you've seen, likes that you've given, comments you've dropped, the pages that you've clicked on, the things that you've joined. And they've used a lot of that over the years to deliver you in an optimized CPM environment, the content that you like, right? Like when you go on Reels, it's all stuff that you enjoy, right? Like when you go on somebody else's Facebook, you might be following the exact same people. It's very different.
Yeah.
Same with Instagram, right? There's these curated feeds. So Facebook has gotten really, really good at that, right? And they've been doing that now for 7 years, something like that, since around 2014, 2015, with the implementation of the OCPM environment. Optimize CPM, because Facebook used to be pay-per-click. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. You can Google that later or ask one of us afterwards. That's a whole other conversation. But basically, there's a curated feed. So with that curated feed, Facebook knows what content you like. It knows what content you want to engage with. It also knows over those years what it takes to get you to take the desired action.
Yeah.
Because you've been telling Facebook for 5, 10 years now, around beginning of February, I'm going to start looking at flowers stuff. These are the types of things that I look at. This is the type of content. When I see this ad around this time, I tend to click on it and take this action. And it's known what seeds that concept and what primes and conditions you to take that action, because you've taught it for years and years and years, right? We know something happens around, I mean, again, Facebook is just a machine, it's just an algorithm, but it understands around late October, early November, people start to click on, what do you click on? What kind of content do you see? So Facebook is extraordinarily aware based on literally trillions of data points. Because remember, there's billions of users, millions of websites, how to condition people to take certain actions. So from where I'm standing, we've got a decade of experience on millions of actions taken, a data set of billions of users. The average person is on 3 to 4 platforms that Facebook owns a data stream on. You might have Messenger, you might have Facebook app, you might have Instagram, you might have WhatsApp, etc.
Yeah.
And you've also given it at least half a dozen or more cycles of testing on you to understand your flow as an individual. So that being said, the last part of that, one other point. Let's not pretend like Facebook doesn't see credit card data.
Yeah.
Doesn't see transaction data, because everybody's selling this information, right?
Well, and from the data houses, it's why an app's free.
Yeah, and to be fair, back in the day, you used to be able to select these credit card company custom audiences in Facebook, and it was a premium. Facebook used to tell you how much extra every audience costs you. Like, this audience costs you 50 cents more. This audience costs you 30 cents more. They eventually got rid of it. But every interest group, every custom audience, every customization is extra. Guac is extra. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an extra pound, right? Like, it's an extra euro, it's an extra buck. It's a little. So all of that being said, Facebook knows what you've done. Facebook knows what you like. It knows what content you are. It knows how to prime you for and condition you to take an action. It knows what actions you want. It knows what pages you're clicking on. For instance, like when I was running New Balance, or their ad account, not the brand. I was not CEO of New Balance. Let's not think about. Yeah. If you've clicked on an ad, say you have ad blocking, but you've clicked on an ad from Nike, you're away for 5-10 minutes, you come back. You click on an ad from Reebok, you're away for 5 or 10 minutes, you come back. You click on an ad for Puma, you're gone for 5 or 10 minutes, you come back. Odds are you want to see my New Balance ad. Also, I know that around this time, before, late spring every year, you end up making a transaction for some sort of trainers. And I know exactly which ones you've bought, the SKU, the credit card number, all of this stuff. All of that is information that Facebook has before we get to tracking you on a pixel. Yeah. So that pixel is just the last little bit of that journey. And so my whole point with that is I lean into, and I've been teaching this for 5 years now, I lean into broad audiences because I basically have this theory. Every ad effectively makes its own lookalike audience, right? Every post, like when you make a reel, Facebook or Instagram, they see who responds positively to that content and they show it to other people, right? That's why some of them get 100 views and some of them get like 3,000, right? And you see content from people you didn't know existed.
Yeah.
So Facebook knows who to show this to for particular reasons. Now, when you say show this to people that like it, but I'm also trying to condition people to take this action, conversion objective that I might be optimizing towards within a certain window, my optimization and attribution. Now it's just one window. It used to be 2, right? Every ad effectively makes its own, I try to think of it as it makes its own lookalike audience. It makes its own little circle of people and confidence, really good people and expanding out.
Yep.
Now, when you go broad, you're saying, hey, I'm going to let you touch anybody in the universe you want. When you start to use audiences like interest groups or lookalikes or something, what you're doing is you're paying extra to make a circle of only the people you want it to show to. Now, the problem is Facebook, the really good impressions are only going to be where those 2 circles overlap, where they make a Venn diagram.
Right.
Those are going to be the really good ones. The problem is that's very limited. And ultimately, when you tap out of that, Facebook then has to start showing impressions to other people that ads lookalike audience doesn't really overlap, but you said you have to serve this inventory and you've already burned through all the good people. So now I'm going to start giving people a bad experience.
Yeah.
So you're paying extra to force a bad experience on users within the platform, which inherently raises your cost of advertising. Now, maybe you get conversions for a good price, but your CPMs might creep up to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, because you're presenting yourself as a bad business partner to Facebook. And if you do that over and over and over again, you're going to get priced out of even being able to do business. Yeah. Because you might have found a cost-effective way of abusing the end user and disrespecting their relationship with the platform. But eventually you're going to be seen as too much of a liability because there's somebody else that's going to do it well. And at the end of the day, there's no shortage of advertisers. Nobody has a completely discrete product that is them, right? Every ad, every impression is basically retargeting impression anyway. So somebody else is going to sell more or less the exact same thing that you are, or provide more or less the same service you are. But if they have more respect for the end user, they're going to win that impression because it's a meritocracy of experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest gap. So for me, I'm broad all day. And I used to not be like that. But
you would narrow or stack the, to get.
Oh, yeah.
So when you say broad, how, describe to me a broad audience to you. Is broad just like, I want females age 30 plus US? Or are you talking like they're into jewelry on one audience and the same jewelry, or the other one they're into gifts or whatever? Is that what you mean by?
Yeah. So we're using broad as a noun, not as an adjective. So we think of broad as an adjective. It's a very broad audience. It's very big. Facebook sees broad. When Facebook uses the term broad, they're using it as a noun. It is basically age, gender, and location. Any additional piece you put on top of that costs extra. Now, again, back in the day, you used to literally be able to see, oh, my CPMs are going to be this. I'm going to tack on this thing. Now it went from $1.50 to $1.75, or went from, whatever, like you started to stack on.
Yeah.
So a broad audience by definition, age, gender, location. Outside of that, you really start to pay a premium to effectively make it harder for an ad to see a good impression and make it more difficult for Facebook to deliver positive experiences and condition users to take an action. So basically you're paying extra to make it harder to be successful.
Right. So would you then, so with your clients then, are you just going broad? Now, are you putting it down to Facebook knows its users unbelievably well? They now know, you've put the pixel on the side, so they now know that you sell jewelry. They now know through what's going on in your website, through that pixel, it's you may have not even turned an ad on, but it knows enough about what's going on that whole funnel to say, men and women, 25 years old, UK wide, run the ad.
Yep. And it's not just the pixel. Facebook's crawled your website. They've seen your catalog. They've compared your metadata to every single other person doing the exact same thing. So now you're a hashed member of a giant data set. And when it comes time for Facebook to decide whose impression should we give, there is the auction of how much you're going to bid to get it. But Facebook's also like, well, you might be willing to pay more, but this user, for whatever reason, should be delivered content they want to see. And what really happens is also, if you start thinking about that, the more you're willing to pay, the higher your CPMs are, the more, for lack of a better word, disrespectful you might be to this business relationship. And I'm trying to be hyperbolic to make the point. Like, I'm not literally this hyperbolic. I'm just trying to like really make it, right and left, up and down, black and white, like very, binary. You're not going to get the good impression. You're not going to get the impression that drives the action you're trying to do. You're going to get the impression because you told Facebook, look, I'll pay $50, $60 to reach 1,000 people. Great. Well, somebody else is giving a much better user experience. So we're going to make sure that person reaches all the really good people.
Yeah. So we've always said this. We've said it's an open playing field, because just because the big companies got, the big PLCs got, or retail PLCs got all the money and they sell jewelry. But if you're a little jewelry company and you're doing amazing ads and your engagement's great and you're doing some amazing reels and blah, blah, Facebook's seeing that engagement and going, the guys with the big money, I'm going to get this, these people deserve it.
Yeah. And also when you're talking about scale, economies of scale, you have to also understand that success is defined differently. You know, a lot of my students in the MBA program, or a lot of the clients I work with, success for them might be 20 sales a day. It might be 200 sales a day. It might be 2,000. But the point is, if success for you is, say, 10 sales a day, how many impressions do you really need to deliver on a daily basis to reach that point of business success for yourself? Maybe it's 10 sales a day today. Next month is 12. The month after that is 15. Maybe the month after that is 20. Maybe you take a step back, whatever. By the end of the year, you're like 30, 40 a day. Phenomenal job. You've 3x'd your business, right? I mean, a 2% change on like a weekly basis is a 300% change in your business.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember, you don't need to move mountains. Steady growth is way easier to maintain. So if you have a bunch of people that are just doing good work, they're going to be able to steal all the really great impressions, all the really great inventory. And that's one of the advantages of direct consumer advertising over retail brands that are trying to port their strategies into social. Yeah. And while they are raising the cost of advertising for everyone, like when I would dump $1 million into an interest group to do market research for CBS, you're going to pay higher. But like, remember, those interest groups basically only exist because when Facebook was a pay-per-click platform, they wanted to make it comfortable and familiar for Google advertisers. But their developers stopped supporting that technology 7 years ago. So you're using 7-year-old tech. Imagine if you were still using your iPhone from 7 years ago. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, this is clearly going to be the thing that I'm going to revolutionize. You know, my kids are never going to have to work. I'm going to hire a whole bunch of people. Like, it's never going to work like that. That's an unrealistic expectation. Yeah.
So going from that, then these broad audiences, this is what I'm really interested in, because obviously everyone's testing audiences. And how do you've got a client, and then they've got, let's say they're not brand new, they've got data, they may have given you some lists of email addresses and stuff like that, so you can start really feeding up the ads manager or whatever. How do you go about testing audiences? Do you test audiences, or do you just, because we no? I mean, what's the way
I will say this, I do test audiences, but not in the way that people think. Broad is my environment. Now, remember we said every ad makes effectively its own lookalike audience, right? Every ad based, Facebook sees who responds positively, who responds negatively. They're going to go out and find more people that respond positively because, hey, they don't want to show an ad to somebody that's not going to like it. There's a meritocracy of user experience. Facebook then constructs an environment around each ad to show that to the right person.
Yeah.
So really, this is a creative issue. And what I'm getting to that is every creative concept, when you're doing a creative test, should be designed to ultimately solve a problem. Either you are trying to get more efficient at a specific sales pitch. You have a car dealership, you're selling sports cars, minivans, and sedans. You need to sell the minivan for a little bit better. Well, why don't we work on our sales script for selling that minivan? Now, when somebody comes in and asks for a sports car, you're not appealing to them, but you're going to get that minivan more and more efficient. Now, let's say you have only ads for minivans, and people keep coming to you wanting sports cars or sedans. Now, a lot of brands make the mistake of saying, well, I have a good ad, I'm just going to make 20 more like it and try to scale. Well, you saturated that audience. Those ads are basically the Venn diagram of the lookalike audiences of all of your winning ads is basically a circle.
Yeah.
It represents some infinitesimal piece of the overall environment.
Yeah.
If you want to start scaling, increasing spend, because remember, that's efficiency, that's lowering CPA, increasing customer quality and volume. Excellent thing to do, totally a valuable piece. If you want to instead scale spend, then you need to create content that specifically appeals to a different person. So again, in this environment, if every ad you have as a minivan, you're doing really good, you're scaling your business, and at some point you hit a threshold. If I want to buy a sports car, if I want one of those beautiful neon 11 Targas that are behind you, and you say, awesome, here's my Grand Caravan from Dodge. I'm like, but I want oh, great. I'm glad it seats 7 people. It's super safe. Like all you have as a sales pitch is selling me that minivan. You're losing me. So if you want to scale your audience to the 911 Targa people, that beautiful sports car, make an ad that appeals to that person. And now you have an ad that appeals to this audience and an ad that appeals to this audience and one that appeals to this one and to this one. And ultimately, you start to be able to appeal to different types of individuals.
Yeah.
And when you have ads that appeal to different types of people, you can start to also let those ads create a customer journey. Because in broad, I'm also not doing retargeting, because in my opinion, every impression is retargeting. Because if it's the first ad you've seen from my brand, Facebook has decided, well, based on your previous behavior, you want to see this. Remember, like you went to Nike, you went to Reebok, you went to Puma. Well, my New Balance ad might be cold traffic, but you've also spent 20, 30 minutes on all of my competitors today. So I'm retargeting you. And advanced matching, which is part of the Power Five, would be in the disruptive group to help put that together. That's what that does. So you can really start basically retargeting end users' traffic from other websites and other content. So my point with that is, when I'm testing audiences, what I'm doing is I'm testing types of content, because each one of those pieces of content effectively creates its own focus.
So you'll be the same in the audience side, in the ad set page, it would be the same audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so massively broad US audience of people aged 25 plus. They see the Porsche sports car because Facebook knows that you're creatively putting out a sports car and your copy is talking about a sports car. So it's going to show the sports car to the people who are interested in a sports car. You could use exactly the same audience for any other product. You're leaving it entirely for Facebook to find the people, that pocket of people in there.
Yeah. Now, the one exception to this rule, where my analogy falls a little bit short, and I'll call myself out on it, is I organize my campaigns by business objective. So in this case, I might have a campaign specifically for minivans. I might have a campaign specifically for sports cars. I might have a campaign specifically for sedans. I would also make a custom conversion event so that Facebook knows I'm not optimizing towards a purchase. I'm optimizing towards a sale of a minivan. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is lower our CPA. There's a lot of wonderful metrics that make people sound really smart, like MER and ROAS and all of this other stuff that doesn't matter. It's out of context vanity metrics as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we agree.
And I'll say that for really quick. The only equation that matters in direct consumer advertising is CPA plus COGS, cost per acquisition plus cost of goods, that number divided by LTV. What is the margin on user experience? Every transaction you drive is either pushing somebody further towards that LTV or starting a new journey. Revenue is volume of is basically total volume of opportunity. How many people do you get in the opportunity of going to that LTV? That's the entire business. Everything else is a distraction.
Everyone's focusing on the acquisition. Put £10 in, get £50 out, and it's like, how much returning business are you getting to your company? What lifetime value? How many times does 30% of the people, if you're only using Facebook to drive acquisition and you're not doing anything else, but your business is still growing because those people are coming back all the time and 30% are buying again on your average order value of $55, then you can't go off the ROAS of the beginning ad, of the first ad, can you? You have to go off the return on investment.
And at the end of the day too, you can't control ROAS.
No.
I might come to the store and drop $50. Now you got deep pockets, you're buying for 20 people, you spend 1,000. Your ROAS might be 20 on that transaction, mine might be 3. Does it really mean that your advertiser can take any action on that data? No. There's no way to control for that. So if you can't take action on it, then the data is effectively useless. I'm only interested in actionable data that allows me to take high confidence binary decisions. Everything else is a report card till I can show home to my parents. I got a sticker and they're like, fantastic, great. It doesn't mean anything though.
Yeah. So when you're talking about separate campaigns, so sorry, you got a campaign, let's call it Mercedes, okay? Mercedes campaign. And in that, you wouldn't have an ad set for their AMG Sports. You wouldn't alongside an ad set for their SUV, along with their minivan or whatever, because in that campaign, you're using the same audience, but it's within the same campaign. So you'll have a Mercedes AMG campaign, a Mercedes minivan campaign. And then you'll try out different copy, different creative within that campaign for that particular car.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to do is, let's say it's a Sprinter, right? This thing is safe. That's one concept, marketing angle. Another one is it can load all of this stuff. Another marketing angle, another concept. You have price, you have quality. There's all sorts of these different things. Now, one of the other things is when you get a bunch of ads that all work in that, what they do is Facebook knows what's going to prime and condition you for an action. So that broad audience is actually doing a lot of retargeting to make sure that you see the right thing. And we know that this happens because the frequency is more than one, right? Like no ad set ever has a frequency of one unless you're doing daily unique reach. Like it's always 1.1, 1.4, something like that.
Yeah.
And there's this other, just for what it's worth, there's this other metric called first time impression ratio, which as far as I'm concerned is totally useless information. Because am I controlling that? Is my bottom line? Like, there's these report cards and these like grades on info, but if it's not actionable, it doesn't really matter. And the reason I bring that up is I don't care about today versus tomorrow versus yesterday on how much retargeting is happening. If Facebook is conditioning the experience to get you to take that action, then I'm happy with that. Also, Facebook is the fuel for the fire of your overall business model. Facebook is amplifying a successful business model. I have to give respect and quote my buddy Cody of Jones Road Beauty, Cody Plofker. He said something, and I've been quoting him ever since, so I want to give him credit. Whereas a good business will scale a Facebook ad account. And he's 100% correct. It's so much more elegant than the paragraph I used to have to describe with that. And the point is, maybe Facebook gets you one sale. How many users came to your website that then searched you later or signed up for your email list or did any other action? And the real trick to acquisition media, growth marketing, and my prediction is this is going to be the measure du jour in 2024, 2025, because we still have everybody, ad agencies trying to prove their value because of ROAS, which I think is a dying model. It has to be a relationship on business growth, is incremental lift. When you spend more money on Facebook, what happens to the rest of your channels, right? Or when you spend more money, like we all know inherently, if you double your Facebook spend, your search volume is going to go up. Your CRM list is going to grow. So what's your margin, knowing that you lift all these other channels? What is your allowable CPA on Facebook? How much spend can you drive on one channel? And eventually, when you get to that, you stop caring about attribution, because it doesn't matter who gets credit. It matters in this is my mixture. When I add more of this, I get more of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, using sports cars, if you make a high performance gasoline when you're adding in the oxygen and you're getting all the stuff, is it one molecule that does all the work? No, it's the combination of everything. And I know, because I used to have a hot rod, like if I put that like octane boost stuff in there, it's not the thing that makes the car go, but when I do that, it goes a lot faster, right? The engine is louder. I get more, it's more rapid, right? I get more velocity and power. And so we have to think of Facebook as serving that function in our business. And I think that ultimately, if you can measure for that, you're going to be wildly successful, because it eliminates you from having to have this conversation of who gets credit. Because credit, and this is just one thing, the idea of attribution on digital marketing, first off, people love it. It's been around forever. It was a sales pitch. Attribution started because digital marketing companies wanted to prove that they deserved spend, that they did something. So, programmatic advertising in the late 90s, early 2000s, salespeople came up with this idea, and the technology had to prove its efficacy of showing attribution. We get credit for this thing. And that just basically became indoctrinated after decades and generations of media buyers as something that was important, when it really isn't. Because before that happened, plenty of businesses ran on television, billboards, print ads, radio. There's no attribution.
They just did it and they grew.
Yeah, and they understood what happened. And I had to learn this because I was a big attribution hawk, right? Like, I used to be at this other ad agency called Hyphen. It was an FMP. I was a senior there. And my job is basically bring in a client that's working with 5 agencies. I'm going to measure everybody down to a 1-day click, and I'm going to steal the ad spend from every other agency because we also do Google, we also do dev, we also do creative work. You don't need to work with these 5 other people. Give us the money. So I went out there and I just got the money from everybody. It was a fun job, and I learned a lot. And then I went in client side with this brand called 310 Nutrition, and I started to do that. And the president of that company was the former vice president of Guthrie Renker, $100 million a year on television.
Right.
Her attribution model was 15 minutes after the infomercial aired. That was it. She could manage $100 million a year growing Ginsu knives and Proactive and like all of these huge brands on time of a television commercial. And so when she taught me how she measures that, it was 6 months of me telling her I was right, telling her I was right, telling her I was right, and her kicking me out of her office until I figured it out. Like, we had a very contentious relationship, but it was out of respect, right? And yeah. I still say her name is Marina. She's one of the smartest people I've ever worked with, one of the greatest bosses I've ever had. I could not be half the man I am today professionally without working with her. Smart women run this industry, and I don't think they get nearly enough credit. So Marina, when I finally came to her and said, well, for every $5, every $10 you spend on Facebook, we generate 1% lift in direct traffic. We're getting 3 email addresses. The value per email is X and the search volume is Y, and our direct traffic, but we're driving higher volume because we're promoting over here and measuring the shapes of the curves. She loved me. And you know who else loved me was Facebook and Google and Snapchat. So they all did, like, we did a bunch of these combined case studies of seeing what happens. Like, I got $1 million from Google, $1 million from Facebook to just spend on brand awareness to see what happened to search volume. Yeah. And we could legitimately measure an efficacy curve over what you're doing between the two of them. Now, ultimately, what ended up happening is, if you're not optimizing towards a conversion objective, you're getting a whole bunch of awareness to people that are never going to buy. So that was a fun lesson.
Well, that's the thing now. Great you've brought on that, because, you know, traffic campaigns, you know, you bring, and I came off a call yesterday, a consultancy call yesterday with a lad who said, oh, I've had a Facebook marketing expert. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I said, what do they tell you? Awareness at the top, followed by traffic, and then put some conversions at the bottom of the funnel. He went, yeah, that's exactly it. And I said, yeah, they've been saying it for 5 years.
Yeah, and it's been wrong. For what it's worth, by the way, Facebook marketing experts, Facebook had so many advertisers that they couldn't hire in-house for good reps. So they farmed it out to third-party agencies that are basically just trying to get money. But those marketing experts are great opportunities if you reach out to them and you say, thank you for this. I'd love to get a power lift study. Now, that's something that you need Facebook's measurement and engineering team to deliver to you. But what that does is it raises the visibility of your rep. And so it starts making relationships where that rep has to work to their counterpart that's actually a Facebook employee to get 2 other departments together to come back. Now you do that a few times, and eventually you're a good lead, and you get picked up by the person that actually cares about you. You know, the person that's, you know, in London, the person that's in Chicago, the person that's in Austin, instead of the person that's, you know, not, I'll put it that way. I don't know what the London version of it is, but in America, they're all in Phoenix for some reason. Right, okay. I don't know. I would say Ireland. Manchester, but that's probably a pretty big city.
We have them, they're all in Ireland.
Okay, fair enough. Nothing against the Irish, but that's where the marketing experts are, right?
But I was on with LinkedIn yesterday, and amazing. Chalk and cheese. Like, you can see how they're trying, these other platforms are trying to catch up. We're seeing with TikTok, the amount of stuff that TikTok can bring out. It is like super helpful. We want you on our platform and we're going to help you spend money. Whereas Facebook's just gone, oh, tell him to run a traffic campaign.
Yeah. And to be fair, so to get back to your point about traffic and brand awareness and video views and then retargeting with conversions and all of that, I'm inspired by the Porsches in the back. Again, love that picture, man. That is great. It made me so happy. As soon as we talked about, before we even hopped on, we had a 5-minute conversation.
I get one, come over to the UK and we drive it.
I was just in the UK and it was beautiful. I spent I had a 10-day European vacation. We can talk about it later.
Where were you? Where were you in the UK?
I went to London. My wife went to school at Goldsmith. So she was there for a year or so. So we went to, we were in, I guess, was it West Chapel? somewhere in zone 1, but like the last tube spot in the east in zone 1. But I got to walk to the Tower Bridge and
nice. Yeah, it's amazing.
you know,
I spent half my time down there.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. I love it.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then we went to the Italian Alps, did some snowboarding, went to Paris, came back, went to Camden Town, bought some like
well, we need to
Converse.
We need to. Well, if you're into snowboarding as well, I just came back 2 weeks ago, so this is another conversation now.
yeah. Anyway, getting back to it. By the way, I went to Chalet Alphos, beautiful in the Alps, just to go snowboarding, and I had the greatest. Chalet Alphos.
In what resort? Is
that's its own thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's in the city of Trenton or outside of it.
Okay.
Either way, it was beautiful.
I made
a reel, by the way, of us. Like, they have this heated seat that's sort of like an Instagram moment, where they serve you this giant thing. We made an Instagram reel of the like sneezing into your shoulder, or whatever. 480,000 views later on my personal Instagram. I was like, I tried to repost it on my business one, and I got like 2,000 views. Nobody cared. Yeah. But anyway, back to
conversions and traffic.
Yeah, back to where we were. I'm ADD. I could have 5 conversations. I love it. This is fun. So traffic and conversions. I will make this analogy because, again, inspired by the cars. If I'm a car dealership, I might look at my numbers and say 3 out of 4 people that test drive a car buy one. It's a pretty decent number. Let's say half. Let's be conservative. Half the people that test drive a car buy one. Now let's say I've got a BMW, Mercedes, you said Mercedes, right? Or a Porsche. Let's say we got a Porsche dealership. Half the people that test drive a Porsche buy a Porsche. Awesome. So you could look at it and say, that's my retargeting audience. I just need to get more volume of people. So I just need to get more test drives. Totally makes sense. We're on the logic train is making sense. So how do you get more test drives? Well, the easiest way of doing a test drive is put that Porsche next to like a college campus and a homeless shelter and tell everybody they get a free meal if they take a test drive. You're going to get 10,000 test drives and sell nothing.
Yeah.
That's basically the same thing that you're doing when you're running a traffic or video view campaign, because these people have no signal to Facebook that they're interested in actually taking an action. So you're heavily polluting your data set with people that basically don't care. Yeah. And that can cripple the bottom line to a business. A conversion campaign is specifically designed to have that journey of condition and prime to take an action.
Yeah.
So every impression in that journey is trying to get people along the way to take that action. And to be fair, you can retarget people that are doing stuff to other people, and you might prime somebody to buy from your competitor. That's going to happen. But if you're running traffic and video view, maybe that's effective. And here's the other side. Maybe that end ROAS, which I see screenshots of the retargeting ad set at like a crazy ROAS, which again, ROAS is a nonsense number, but you're not taking into account the investment to get that retargeting audience to go. So if it costs you 2,000 pounds to build an audience that you can spend $300 a day on, or $100 a day, like the unit economics, you're still losing money.
Yeah.
But somebody on Twitter or Instagram, or somebody on stage at some summit gets to point to a giant number on the screen and say, like, this is working for us. But it's an out of context number.
This is the hardest thing about that funnel, isn't it? Because logic would say, if you're going to do a top, a moff, and a boff, let's get loads of people, video views at the top or traffic at the top. It's all going to come in, and then we're going to create we're going to create an audience of website visitors. And then we're going to retarget the website visitors that have just been brought in from traffic, which is students buying a Porsche. It's not going to happen. And then you retarget them on people. I think where my students, and probably yours as well, finding it hard then is, okay, well, if I'm using conversion at the top, it's going to take so much longer or so much more money to build those audiences as you go through. Do you see what I mean? So it'd be harder to breed. You're not going to get 1 million clicks a day for 10 quid on traffic. You might get 25 clicks for £10 instead of 250 clicks for £10. So it's going to take longer to build that audience. But this is where so do you agree with that? This is where the creative comes more in, because those clicks are so much more important.
Oh yeah. It's the same thing for like lead gen. Like, I can get you leads I see people all the time. I can lower your cost per lead. Great, you give me 5-cent leads. My call center can't handle calling 4,000 people that don't give a damn. I don't even have the capacity of handling that volume of terrible traffic.
Yeah.
My point, what I try to tell people and teach folks is, we're not in the business, or you shouldn't be in the business of trying to be profitable on day one. No business. If you went to a bank and said, I'm going to open a shop and here's my business model, and in 45 days, I'm going to be printing money, they're going to laugh you out of the business.
Yeah.
Because that is a completely unrealistic thing. What we should be focusing on, and I always tell people, like, when you're starting a brand, think of it like this. You have one product. Your product is your brand. Most business owners don't think of the exit strategy for their business when they're starting to make first and second steps. So if you're trying on every single day to make money, what that ultimately means is, over time, you're going to be making far less. Because if I can work on consistently improving the volume and quality of my customer, it's not a question of if I can make things work. It's a question of how long until my business is so strong and successful that I can not have to do it anymore. And some people want to run a business to work at it every day. But if you're starting a business to give yourself a day job, great, I get it. Maybe this isn't the conversation for you. If you're starting a business to create jobs and ultimately wealth for yourself and independence, then there should be an idea of, are you going to do this every single day for the rest of your life? And if the answer is no, at what point are you okay leaving? And maybe that's just getting investors. Maybe that's selling more and more of your company, whatever it is, or selling the whole thing piecemeal all the way out the door, whatever that looks like. But if you start with conversions right away, every single person in your CRM list, every single person in your entire ecosystem is going to be focused towards helping you generate more and more value.
Yeah.
And I'll make this one more analogy. Like, if you're growth hacking, one of the most common things people do is they just go to a page and then just follow everybody. Awesome. You're going to get some followers. Maybe you get 2, 3, 5,000 followers. Great. When you get to 10,000 followers, because you're actually running business, half of that data set is completely useless. And we start to monetize that, you're losing 50 cents on every dollar to pay for the waste, because you built an asset where a large percentage of it was completely useless, but you have to still support that legacy.
Yeah.
And so I always look at it as an investment banker. How much of my portfolio do I want to be dead weight?
Yeah.
The answer should probably be as close to zero as possible.
Absolutely. It's the same with, so we also do LinkedIn and well, you know, we dabble in all of them, but LinkedIn, B2B, you know, getting your link clicks between $5 and $10 is good. So if it's costing you 60, let's say it's costing you £10 or $10 to get a click to your site, you're really paying attention to how you're going to treat that person when they hit it. And I think Facebook needs to be the same, but I think we've gone through such a period of time where it was easy, wasn't it? You know, you could put something out there and you got orders from it. And fucking hell, you know, if you're looking at ROAS, people go, oh, I've got 5 ROAS on doing that. Those sort of days are gone. You really need, marketing 101 is now more prevalent across these platforms than it ever has. You really have to think about what you're putting in front of people, testing, copying, creative, seeing what resonates, seeing what engages with people, making sure that's tying it with an audience and all this sort of stuff. And I think people forget, I think, unfortunately, the education behind it is, you know, this is a lot to learn, isn't it? We do this day to day with people's money and you learn very fast. It's hard. It's hard to do, isn't it? Yeah.
And one of the reasons, I've developed a reputation over the last few years. I got kicked out of everybody's Facebook group in 2016, 2017, like the ad leaks of the world and all of these folks, because I would offer actionable advice. And honestly, when I see people post ideas that I think I understand, I was where you were, I thought this too. I then spent a couple $1 million and had to learn a mistake. I mean, I'm hundreds of millions of dollars and nearly a decade in, right? Like my clients and students have done over $1 billion in revenue. I've kind of been there and done that, right? This is people's bottom line. Like this is food on the table. right? This is a roof over your head. This is, do you have to give up on your dream or can you hire people? These are the types of conversations we're really having. So when somebody goes out there and gives bad advice enthusiastically and they're popular, a lot of people will take that on as being gospel.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a really slick salesperson is rarely ever the person that's also exceptionally good at the work.
Yeah.
And there's very few times where that crossover, you know, is a net positive. And I think we've seen generations of media buyers where when Facebook came out, people applied email and Google best practices to it because it was a PPC platform.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Then it evolved, but you could still do things the wrong way. One, because the inventory was so cheap, we're underpriced attention. Gary Vee talks about it all the time. Absolutely true. But there's something else at play. Or two other things. One, the saturation of opportunity was, now there might be 10,000 people selling the exact same thing you are. Yeah. In 2017, 2018, there might have been 500.
Yeah.
We're also facing a much bigger issue in that 2013 to 2020, 2010 to 2020, we basically had more or less almost 9 or 10 years of just booming economy.
Yeah.
And when you have a booming economy, that means everybody has more disposable income. Everybody can buy luxury items. And at the end of the day, very few things that we sell online, very few services we offer online are essentials, right? If it's makeup, if it's weight loss, if it's sneakers, if it's yard service or like, you know, solar panels or whatever, like these are effectively luxury items. And when you get down to somebody looking at their stock portfolio and they took another 5% hit for 3 months, 6 months in a row, and maybe the price of gas is going up, or, you know, they've done all this other stuff, you're really starting to make the question, like, do I need bread? Do I need to pay rent? Or should I buy these sneakers? Yeah. Now that's, again, very hyperbolic, and I'm trying to be hyperbolic to make the point. But we had a position where basically every year you couldn't do anything wrong. Yeah. Right? And when nobody can do anything wrong and everybody's making money, it's really, really easy to run growth and acquisition direct consumer brands. Because you just have to be the appealing, shiny object that I'm going to spend money on today.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we now face an issue of iOS 14 basically made all of the things you're not supposed to do much, much harder to win with.
Yeah. Because
Facebook, not only did iOS 14 block data, but Facebook also made a couple of other announcements, which I don't think people really pay attention to. But one, they said, you know, Instagram is a video platform. They focus on communities. They really, really, in multiple press conferences, said they are working on the customer experience on the platform. They're working on the product quality, right? Now, we as Facebook advertisers say, well, Facebook Ads Manager is broken. You know who doesn't care about that? Anybody that doesn't use Ads Manager. Like the other 3 billion people in the world that use Facebook product. Yeah. They don't give a damn if Ads Manager works or not.
Yeah.
And we've seen disruption, like from TikTok, right? And so Facebook is trying to adopt that stuff. Facebook's working really, really hard on making the end user experience better. So all of these hacks and all of these inventory and demand-based platform strategies that used to work are presenting a higher and higher level of liability to the success of a business. So that's a big thing that we're facing. And ultimately, I think we see this now in that it used to be underpriced. There was less attention. Everybody had money to burn. Now there's way more saturation. The hacks that worked because you could disrespect the customer are actually not good for you anymore. Yeah. Because Facebook is prioritizing you doing a good job in their experience, and you have to be a much better business person. Like your business model is far more important than your ability to funnel hack.
Yeah.
Because we're getting that CRM list, we're getting that search volume. And then the other side of it is there's way less money to go around. So there's higher competition for fewer resources, and the marketplace that you're dealing with places a much higher priority on how people behave because you have been a burden on them. And I mean that very clearly. I understand nobody signs on to Instagram, nobody logs into Facebook to see my ad.
Yeah.
I am a burden on your experience.
Yeah.
I have to do the best I can to take that burden and make it a positive experience for you to generate a desired business result for myself.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you are the person stopping somebody on the street and trying to take money out of their pocket every single day.
Yeah.
And so back when I was a touring musician, I got good at this kind of thing, right? Just like nobody cares, right? Like, so it's not like, do you want to buy my shirt, right? It's which of these shirts do you want to buy? Here's my story. Here's why you should care, right? And you start to make these types of things. And those are the folks I think that are going to be really successful versus the folks that struggle are the ones that embrace how Facebook fits in their ecosystem and the end user experience. We talk about all the time of, well, what's working on Facebook today? Well, what's working on Facebook today for me might be very different than you. We might be selling the same thing because you've curated an audience that expects a certain type of communication from you. And I've done the same, which is completely my style. No one is objectively better or worse, but we've conditioned people to understand how we communicate. And we've conditioned a machine that doesn't understand language at all, right? It's like a dog, right? Like you're just trying to teach it to pee outside, right? That's it. That's all we're trying to do. Don't rip up the mail and pee outside. My puppy still rips up the mail. We're working on it.
Yeah.
So if you've been doing that for a long time, like what's going to work is probably leaning more into that. Far more than saying, well, this audience works for this person or this creative type is working or UGC is the thing. Why is UGC a thing? Probably because consumers are getting really suspicious of advertisers and they just want to see other folks. But if your brand has developed a great relationship, maybe people don't need to see UGC from you. They just need to see the right offer, the right type of content, the right thing, right? And so there's all of this different type of stuff that's going out there. But I say all of that to ultimately get down to the path to success is different for everyone. But ultimately what we have to do is one, measure incremental lift. I use a doc I call the ecosystem ROAS doc. I'm basically seeing spend, I'm seeing investment, return, and volume by channel. And from there, I can measure incremental lift across channels. We also have to creative test specifically to do audience testing and messaging testing to increase efficiency or drive more scale. Those are the only two objectives we have to do. If you start to try to make some compromise in there, you're going to compromise your end result. You have to do one or the other. And then you need a system and a process that allows that to work where you learn from every mistake that you've made. You can repeat all the wins that you have, and you can get ahead of it so that every decision you make is a binary one. A high confidence binary decision. Was this a winner? Yes or no? What are we going to do with that? We have a process that's documented. Nomenclature is in line. Reporting is in line. Testing is in line. Accountability, transparency. When you have all that stuff together, it ultimately isn't a question of if you're going to be successful. It's just a matter of when are you not investing enough?
Yeah.
And when you frame the conversation in that way, success becomes very easy because you can point down to where's my roadblock? And it ultimately gets me to my last point here, which is what I really try to stress more than anything is figure out something that works, get as much volume to something, right? And then you see where in your customer journey is something broken. Now, maybe nobody buys a second time. Improve your product quality, immediately you can spend more on Facebook. Maybe your checkout experience is tough. You get 1,000 people to your store page, say 600 go to the product page, 300 add to cart, 50 buy. Okay, well, what happens when we make that 50 a 75? If we make it for that 50 a 75 because we improve that experience, we can increase our Facebook ad spend by 50%. You're going from 2,000 a day to 3,000 a day overnight, and probably more, because that's assuming a complete loss on all the investment. If you get one or two extra transactions for that extra $1,000, like now you're in business.
Yeah.
And so what we do is just try to funnel everything we can to honestly see where the bottleneck is, and then just improve that bottleneck, and then repeat the cycle over and over again. And that problem and solution solving works whether you're running a car factory, whether you have a bakery, whether you're running Facebook ads for solar panel lead generation. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I really try to look at all of this. And I think the reason I like Facebook versus other channels is because it's the world's greatest market research and intent creation device. And that machine learning does all the work for you. You just have to set up the system to do it. And I think what the biggest mistake people make is they try to work hard. And I'm not saying working hard is a bad thing. Working hard is a very commendable thing, and you should. But Facebook is the employee. You're the manager. Every time you micromanage your employee and then get upset when they don't succeed, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
You know, every time you start a campaign or an ad set, you invest into it. Oh, it didn't work this month. I'm going to kill it. You're going to hire a new employee, right? Every ad set is I think of it as every campaign is a manager. Every ad set is like a salesperson. Every ad is a pitch. How many managers are you hiring a year? How many salespeople are you firing because they had a bad week? How much effort are you putting into giving them a better sales pitch?
Yeah.
If you're swimming in circles, probably like you would never run any other store by firing an employee because they had a bad first 3 days, or a manager because they had a bad week, when literally nobody stopped into any shop on the street.
Yeah.
So we have to think of Facebook in these real world terms. And I love it because it's the easiest for me to take real world action and to make those types of analogies. Plus the scale is effectively infinite, which is exciting, because email is great, but you can't grow a brand on email because you need more email addresses. Yes. Search is great, but if I'm not creating intent, who's going to search for me?
Absolutely.
That being said, Facebook and LinkedIn have the worst conversion rates on your money. Like Google, you get 30-cent click to sell $1,000 item. That's a great return, but like it's not scalable, right? So just all about that entire process.
It's interesting when you talking about the bottlenecks in it, because most of the time when we're looking at, obviously, you know, we like to think we know what we're doing with how we're placing the ads and what the ads look like and the creative and the copy and stuff like that. Most of the time when you're looking at those sort of stats of the click-through rates and your costs and things like that, that's not the downfall. People don't look at what's happening post-click to their website. And you start using, you know, we had one the other day, and I was like, you know, so you start looking into, well, you do realize that like 89% of the people, in fact, on this one, no one was on desktop.
Okay.
Like 100% mobile. And I said, this was a consultant, and I said, have you looked at the mobile view? No, you haven't been on the you've not been on your client's mobile and seen if this works. No. Yeah. Okay, well, it's falling down because I've been on it for 10 minutes now and I still can't figure out how I go to checkout.
Oh man, I'm just laughing because.
And it's just so true.
I had an alcohol delivery client here in LA. I'll leave it at that. 2 years ago, their Facebook ads manager person was, the person running the Facebook ads was a Facebook rep.
Right.
And they were really happy about getting a 3x return on $500-600 a day. Stoked. Now look, fantastic. I went to their site to try to do a test because they were coming to me for consulting. Like, hey, we're trying to, you know, expand and make this better. We can't seem to get past $600 a day. I couldn't buy on my phone. I legitimately, when I hit add to cart, the pop-up for the add to cart button came above the buy button.
Yeah.
Functionally, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Long story short, within like 100 days or so, 100 days to 4 months, in that 3 to 4 month period, when I came on board, instead of looking at ROAS, we looked at, well, let's make a $22 margin on each individual transaction that we're running, increase the volume. And let's work our CPA model. And within 4 months, 3 to 4 months, instead of getting a 3x return on $600, they were making $22 per transaction at $3,000 a day, and had to go out and look for funding.
Yeah.
And they had inventory and funding issues instead of scale issues. And we brought them nationwide.
Yeah.
And it was because you're just looking at the business differently. But yeah, I I literally like I had my wife film me on my phone, and so because a screen record is one thing, but literally like it was her birthday, right? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna order her some drinks, right? I couldn't figure it out. I handed it to her buddy. He couldn't figure it out. He handed it to somebody else. He couldn't figure it out. We're all sitting in this room. People that have used phones for a long, long time couldn't make a buy.
Yeah.
And I sent that back to the rep and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, well, Facebook's just optimizing towards desktop traffic. And I was like, well, there's a reason. And I just think so many people forget to think that there's a real person at the end of that dollar. You know, these are real people. How do they behave? You know,
and it is landing pages, you know, Google, you can see the scroll time, and then well, the percentage of the scroll, and then you're saying, okay, well, our form or our button for the pop-up is at the bottom of the form, and only 11% of the people have gone to the bottom of the form. So we just need to put the form and the button at the top and the middle. We had one the other day, and this guy is, you know, a marketing director, and he's like, yeah, I sort of had to sort of write an email back saying, I think yes, you're at the top of the form, but I think it's quite a long form. And if that person goes down 50%, 25%, they have to go back up to the top because they now want to make an action. So I said, why not on every block, just have a nice, simple call to action. I don't like it. I think it looks scruffy. Okay. You're paying us to make you money. And that's going to be a bottleneck.
It's worth the test, right?
It's got to be.
Like, give it 10% of traffic. See the conversion rate that occurs afterwards.
Yeah.
I see so many people where that button's at the bottom and they're like, well, I want to make sure they read the whole advertorial. My question to them is, what if that's their third click?
Yeah.
They've already seen it. Now you're forcing somebody to scroll, wait for the page to load, scroll, wait for the page to load, scroll to wait for the page to load. Oh, look, it's a green light. I lost the sale.
Yeah.
Or, oh, my boss came back into the room. I'm in a meeting. I have to put my phone down.
Yeah.
Or like whatever. Like it took me 3 minutes of page load time because I had to scroll so far to get to the button. I don't care anymore. And what happens afterwards? Next time I go in, Facebook says, well, wow, you clicked on this ad a bunch of times. You were on the site all a bunch. For whatever reason, you didn't like that. Let me show you a different option. And it's your competitor where the button's right at the top. What happened? You spent a whole bunch of money to make the guy next to you rich.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, we spend a lot of time just, you know, and we've got some at the moment where it is a head scratch and you're watching it come in and you're going, well, what can we do to this process to make these results better? How can we split test this? And then, you know, you just split test one thing, not everything, because then you don't know what's worked.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And it's just, it's all these things. But yeah, I mean, well, this has been a great podcast. There's still so much I want to talk about, but it's like,
oh yeah, look, we can do this every week. I can still have an hour and a half of everything to talk about. This is fun. I literally could do this till I'm blue in the face. Let's
just do it. Let's
what I love.
Monthly guest, and we can just talk about a different topic.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. You can pull your audience too. Let's see what we want to talk about today. Let's solve some problems. Let's make some people some money. Let's make some jobs.
Exactly. Because we haven't even talked
about happy faces on people.
We've talked about attribution. We haven't talked about tracking. We haven't talked about the fact that you might see something in Ads Manager, but Shopify or Google Analytics isn't saying the same thing. Reading that data, things like that. Maybe let's do another one, because I think there's still so much more, and it's been brilliant.
Sure. Yeah, and I can tease it with this. Spend is a meritocracy. Let's come back and explain that later. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, Charlie, it's been absolutely excellent having you on here. I've literally
thank you so much.
I haven't talked everyone in my business, like James, who sometimes is my fellow co-founder who comes onto this podcast. He's like, and when we do talks, he's actually said in front of an audience, he's like, "Oh, I can speak now, can I?" I've not spoken at all on this. It's been brilliant. And it's like wealth of knowledge. You've got so much experience and the thing I've enjoyed about this is the fact that, you know, we speak to people on here. We had Eric who owns Hawk Media, you know, huge company, but it's how far you've gone back, you know, the experiences you've had, what I've taken from this, the experience you've had in different fields of your work, working for other people, what you've learned from that CEO of that massive company has brought you to this place, and you're understanding how these platforms work, opposed to other people, with no disrespect for them, achieving amazing things, but they haven't had as much life experience. They haven't been in the game as long. They haven't seen these things. Do you know what I mean? They've come in.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
no, I totally get it.
Erica Horton Media, a huge success. You know, I said to him, "Oh, do you know Gary Vee?" He's like, "No, Gary Vee. I was at the Super Bowl with him last night." It's like, no way. This is mad. He's been in the game 6 years. He's created a company valued at $175 million.
Yeah.
Amazing. But it's I just love the way, I love the background side of how you've seen these things come to where they are now. And the journey you're going to see now from how they're going to be. We haven't even talked about where we see Facebook and Instagram going with Facebook shops. You know, is Facebook going to buy Shopify and bring it into this platform? Because at the moment, Facebook is getting sick and tired of why are people leave? We have more problems.
Yeah, and Shopify market cap is down 67% in 4 months.
If we allow someone to build their website in our platform, they don't need to leave the platform. The metaverse, he was saying, I think, it may have been Eric said the other day. He was like, why has Facebook created a metaverse? Because then it owns everyone. Everyone in that metaverse in 10 years' time, that's their data. They're not having to worry about Apple. They're not having to worry about Google. It's them in their own universe.
Yeah, and you think about it, Amazon and Facebook already do this because a huge swath of access to the internet around the world occurs on their servers.
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the people in the United States that access the internet access it through Amazon servers. They see that data. Facebook went out of its way in third world to set up infrastructure where people's only experience of the internet is basically Facebook.
Yes,
and like Twitter as like a text function. That's it.
What he wanted, his goal was to not to have Facebook, was to have everyone hold a mobile in their hand and went on Facebook.
Yeah, and it did pretty well. Did it in India, fantastic growth.
Yeah,
it could work anywhere. And as far as where things are going and other T's for that, every single time we've had a massive disruption, Facebook ad spend has gone up at least 50% in the following 18 months. Conversion pixel, Power 5. I don't see why this is any different. I released a study on it a long time ago. I don't know, about 6-7 months ago. But yeah, if you look at the actual volume of ad spend on the platform after every massive disruption, after every cataclysmic apocalyptic event, for what it's worth too, everybody now sitting on iOS 14 that thinks it's like, oh, it's the end of days. When Facebook brought out the Facebook Pixel, it knocked half the people out of the market.
Yeah,
because you couldn't, like, that was so much bigger than what we're seeing with iOS 14. iOS 14 was a roadblock. It was a speed bump. You didn't have to fundamentally change everything.
Are you saying this in the way that the things that these platforms have now experienced because of iOS 14?
Yeah, exactly.
Now do things differently, which means it's just going to get better again because a problem has made them create a solution.
Yeah, basically doing things poorly is less effective.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments I get from this, I get all the time from agency owners. It's like, well, the guy from Facebook even said this was a 10%, $10 billion hit to their ad spend. You know what it was? Because people that don't know how to use Facebook properly, because they were poorly trained and overworked and underpaid by generations of other people that didn't know how to do it well, panicked. Because you're the one telling them, hey, this is not you, but like this agency owner is like, you're the one telling them like this stuff doesn't work anymore. Well, if the trusted source from on high says this stuff doesn't work anymore, I'm going to prop spending. But that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas on the other hand, since November, I have equity in some brands. My women's clothing brand went from 5,000 to 20,000. I went on vacation to Europe. Automated rules went from 12 to 18 in 10 days, and I was snowboarding. I logged into Facebook once.
Yeah.
My CBD brand, yes, we are running CBD ads on Facebook. That could be a topic for 3 months from now, whatever. 500 to 2,000 a day in the last 3 months. Yeah. We're seeing the best performance we've ever seen right now. And I mean, there's a reason why some of the best brands are being extremely successful. And there is a reason why some of the people that came into the game after 2018 And that's the real shift that I'm seeing. Everybody that got in around 2017, 2018, they're dead. Like they're either embracing what they're supposed to do, or they are swearing up and down that Facebook doesn't work. Everybody that says to go broad is crazy. They're not using dynamic ads. They're funnel hacking everything. It's all about everything else. We're going to TikTok now. All these other things. It's like
the dynamic ads. That's another thing we've not discussed.
Yeah, I mean, also
we have great results of dynamic ads.
Yeah, I use
clients and stuff. It's brilliant.
Let me show you something here. This is how to spend $1 million on Facebook. You ready?
Yeah.
This.
So what's that say? Okay.
This is one campaign.
What's the top winners?
This is your best ads.
Yeah.
This is a dynamic creative test to either improve the efficiency or expand the options of this one. This is your second one. If you run this one campaign, lowest cost, auto placement, CBO, and you focus on your creative and improving your LTV, you can easily get to $2,734 a day, which is $1 million a year.
Yeah.
This right here, this sticky note puts 20-30% of ad agencies out of business if they don't embrace it.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I got into a thing with a guy on Twitter, and he was like, "Yeah, well, we understand you're scaling and all this stuff." I was like, "Yeah, you shouldn't be in the same place you were a year ago. You should be better off." And his comment to me was like, "Well, show me your ad account. There's no way this is real." And so I drew this sticky note, and I was like, "This is what it looks like." And he said, "Well, that's not your ad account. A screenshot of a picture of a sticky note is. Show me a screenshot." And I was like, "Okay." So I took a screenshot of a $20,000 a day campaign, and it was just this basically, but instead of being on a sticky note, it was like control ads, test. And that was it. And then I didn't hear anything from him for 3 days. Still haven't heard anything from him. I eventually deleted the screenshot because it's privacy information. I didn't want to share too much, but like, I don't know. Yeah, we could talk about a whole bunch of other things. There's test and scale campaigns. I think that strategy is wildly wrong. You don't need multiple campaigns. I think people promote too many products. You can easily get to millions of dollars a year on one product. Why try to solve 3 problems when you can do one thing really well? Like there's a million things. I would love to talk with you more about this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good. Let's make make it regular.
I love it.
I think. I mean, dynamic creative. I mean, we're going on dynamic creative. We find works amazing for local stuff because my sort of theory is, if you've got a local area and the client's only got a certain amount of money. We're not talking, a lot of the time, I think on these sort of things and people I talk to, and especially on YouTube and stuff, everyone's got massive budgets. Not everyone has got massive budgets. That's a tiny percentage of the businesses out there that every agency is trying to get all these massive ones because they got 10-20% of their ad spend. When we're talking about all the people who are big enough, they might even be a small company that's owned by an owner, and they have a marketing exec or a marketing manager there. They need an agency to help them with their work. They can only afford to pay you this as a retainer, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
That's how an agency has 500 clients and is able to be acquired by another agency.
Yeah,
because the other agency is buying these clients because they've got other services they can sell to these clients, like PPC. A PPC company would love to buy a Facebook marketing company that's got 1,000 clients because they can suddenly do PPC for those 1,000 clients. They've just doubled their revenue.
Yeah.
So that's where I think, I like to talk about on these things in the future, and I like to talk to my audience about, because people haven't got massive bucks. They are coming with $5,000, $3,000 a month, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. You can still make it work, but it's how do you use it in dynamic creative? I find with a lower spend, because you're not having to create multiple ad sets using different copy and creative, you can put it into a dynamic, and Facebook, believe it or not, that amazing computer can go, these ones are working better, I'm going to show it that one.
Yeah. I'd even argue, I do that for the people, I teach that to my students in the MBA program that have a $100 a day budget. I also do it in ad accounts where I have a $20,000 a day budget.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, our job is to just improve the quality of choices Facebook makes on our behalf.
Yeah.
So why not validate elements, put together very simple dynamic creatives. I personally have a thing I call the 3-2-2, 3 creatives, 2 headlines, 2 primary text. Now every decision is binary. Was this thing good or bad? If it's bad, kill it. If it was good, but one thing got a lot of spend but didn't do well, get rid of that one thing. Extract a post ID, put it in the winners, move on to the next one. Cycle that test every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And if your test is doing well, you can just spend more money on that CBO. Who cares if it's going to a DCT, if it's not? And then you've got a month's worth of creative testing in line. Like I have a sticky note here. I love sticky notes. This sticky note is the next 45 days of business. This is my entire business model plan for $20,000 a day to get to 30. It's on a sticky note. And I will legitimately spend 3 to 5 hours a week max on this ad account. And we'll probably go up 50% in the next 45 days. Because I'm just not worried about all the other stuff. The other things that don't matter just don't matter. And I think people have to be okay with the fact that like you don't, just because you're sitting at a desk doesn't mean you have to work 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And if you get really good, you could do 5 times as many clients.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I had to do this because at some point I was managing 5 or 6 clients on 3 or 4 different platforms. I had at max 12 minutes a day per any project.
Yeah.
I can't sit there for 45 minutes and like try to do work. It's impossible. You have to plan weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've said it 5 times. Maybe this time we'll stick to it. Let's just do this again. There's a million things. I really appreciate it, man. It's super fun to chat with people that legitimately enjoy this. And I can see just like this emanates, like our conversation has just been, I mean, clearly I've had a lot of
that's,
fun.
It
feels like you have too.
Yeah, we're a Facebook agency. We dabble in it. We do stuff in the other platforms, but essentially we're a Facebook agency. And it's like, do I bring on guests onto the program that my listeners are going to go, oh, I'm going to listen to him, and I might lose that a listener. It's not about that. It's about giving value to my audience or anyone else who wants to listen to it. I hear things from you. I hear things from Eric. I hear things from all these different professionals in our marketplace, because we've all got different things to do things, and it allows my audience to go, I'm going to try that because that's how I think it would work with my business. And it's great to talk this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
We all learn from it.
Yeah, learning from people is what it's all about. At the end of the day, you should be fairly confident in your decisions. But if somebody comes and solves it with a better mousetrap, you have the choice of learning from them or, falling behind.
Exactly.
Every day I get to talk to people and I get to solve their problems and I get to see other issues. So my sword is sharp on a consistent basis. But every time I get to talk to somebody like you, you're asking me different questions, or we're talking about something, or you're dropping knowledge on me, that improves the quality of conversation I get to have with everybody else. So, I mean, I'm probably a better marketer for the last 90 minutes that we spent. And that's going to be a gift that I carry with me to my students, to my clients, to my businesses. Like, how is that money and time not well spent? Like, I mean, there's no money. I didn't pay anything for this. You didn't, whatever. Money was probably the wrong thing. But like, time spent resources.
I have that with reading. I can read an entire book or listen to an audio thing. All I'm looking for is one little piece of information that I can go, I'll try. Like you've said stuff today. It's like, I'm going to try going broader with a couple of clients. That might work. It might not work. Some of the time, all our clients are different. Some things work for one client, some things work for, but using all this knowledge to try and better yourself, better your clients, better your knowledge on our area. That's what it's down to, because we've got to keep on moving forward.
Yeah.
And we've got to be up with all these changes that are happening. We've done some real ads for a client in Utah, and it was just like, hey, let's try some real ads of you in store. They sell trainers, and it's like blah blah. And then we went on there, and it's just like they've had loads of sales from a reel, and the reel wasn't even processed. They had one reel which was talking about the trainers. The other one was like, hey, I'm going out for a run. It was like a motivational video. The motivational video told the trainers.
Sure. I love that. I remember I worked at a 9-figure business. I was their director of growth. We spent 50 grand on advertising, on creating assets. The receptionist shot a thing on her phone. The thing the receptionist shot 2 years later is still running. That one post ID probably has $5-10 million in ad spend.
Yeah.
I did a deal with the Kardashian family for creative, $100,000 deal, lost 50 cents on the dollar. The cleaning lady chatting with the creative leader. Somebody happened to shoot a little thing. She was like, oh, I love this thing, blah, blah, blah. Great woman, had been with the company for years and years. That conversation was a 45-second video ad. Destroyed Kris Jenner in her bathroom saying, I take this and I lose weight. Destroyed it. It's crazy. It's so annoying because everybody wants that Harmon Brothers, like squatty potty, you know, rainbow poop ad. And the honest truth is, those guys do a ton of work. You know, 3 of their ads. Doesn't mean they're bad. They're exceptionally good. But that's not the reason why that business is successful. Brilliant. Anyway, this is lovely.
Let's check in again in a couple of weeks. I think we do this. I think it's a regular once a month. And we just bring up 2 topics. We just talk about it for an hour, trying to help give value to the audience. And then
I would love it.
Do you want to plug your Instagram?
Sure.
Guys, you've got to check him out on In Reels. Is brilliant.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Instagram, it's at CT the Disruptor. That's also my handle on TikTok. That's also my handle on Pinterest. That's also my handle on Twitter. You can check out the YouTube. It's the Facebook Disruptor. I don't know why that one's different. I got to correct that. And more importantly, if you like what I have to say and you want to do more stuff, I do webinars once a month. They're free, hour-long stuff. It's apply.facebookdisruptor.com to grab a seat. I'm doing one, you know, like I said, every couple of weeks. And all I'm trying to do is, at the end of the day, I just want people to be more successful. Like you said, whether they come to me or not, if we can provide an opportunity for somebody to have more confidence to make a meaningful change in their life, that's amazing. I put my head down on the pillow in a pretty good place most nights. Last night, my ear was ringing. It was tough. Man, but like, I get that thing, right? That juice for me isn't the $100,000, $1 million day on Shopify anymore. I've done that, been there, fun, great. Now it's oh, I had the light bulb go off. This now works for me. The people saying that, like, you know, I went from trying to maybe start a second thing to I literally can't get clients to say no, right? Like that life-changing thing. Like that's just what it's all about. It's a beautiful thing.
Perfect. Okay, mate. Well, listen, have a good day.
I will.
I'm going to go to the gym now and
love it.
Let's catch up in a month and talk about dynamic ads and some of the, I
said, sounds great.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about dynamic ads and some other cool stuff that's going on.
Oh man, I'm excited. Yeah. Let's make it happen. I again, super appreciative. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And love those Porsches behind you, man.
Well, we'll carry on doing this and then we'll get some.
All right. I love it.
All right, mate. You take care.
I'll see you later.
See you in a bit.
You too. Bye.